Whenever a story begins once upon a time, you can be sure that the time they are talking about is a time of castles and magic, of princes and princesses, of spells and witches and fairies. And this particular time is no exception. Once upon a time, there was a castle, and in the castle, of course, lived a king and queen. Now, this king and queen had no children, and both wanted a child desperately. In fact, the queen used to spend hours up in the tiny room way at the top of the castle, sewing clothes and making toys for the child she hoped she would one day have. One December, when snowflakes the size of cornflakes were drifting out of the sky, she sat staring out of the window, when suddenly,
ow!
She pushed her finger onto a sewing needle. Some tiny little drops of blood fell into the snow on the windowsill. The queen just stared at them.
How I wish I could have a daughter whose skin was as pure as that snow and whose lips were as red as those drops of blood. How I wish.
And she sighed again. But fortunately for her, it just so happened that a fairy was passing by on her way home from work. And as the wish drifted up through the falling snowflakes, the fairy was in such a good mood that she just granted it on the spot. Or on the snowflake, as she was. And sure enough, in hardly any time at all, the queen gave birth to a daughter. And sure enough, when she grew up into a little girl, her lips were as red as blood and her skin as white and as pure as snow. In fact, that's what the king and queen named her, Snow White. She was the kind of person everybody loved. In the castle, in the town, she had a smile on her face and never a bad word for anyone. You don't believe anyone could be like that, do you? Well, I'll prove it. Let's just stop this farmer coming up the road. Excuse me?
Ooh-ar!
You're a farmer, aren't you?
I wouldn't have said ooh-ar if I wasn't a farmer.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you tell us what you thought of Snow White?
Oh, Snow White. Oh, she was a pretty one. Prettiest little thing we ever had round here. Friendly, happy, never a bad mood. Oh, she was the sweetest girl that ever walked, and no mistake.
See? Thank you.
It was terrible what happened to her when her mother died.
Yes, all right. Thank you. I hadn't got to that bit yet.
Oh, sorry.
But then something terrible happened. Snow White's mother, the queen, died. The king and Snow White were heartbroken and grieved. But after a few years, the king married again. Now, the woman he married seemed very charming and polite to him, but when his back was turned, she was cruel and spiteful and horrible to everyone else. You see, the new queen was actually half woman, half witch. The problem was, it was very difficult to tell, because there was nothing in her face which made you suspect she was a witch. The only giveaway was her laugh. Let me give you a comparison. This is how a normal queen laughs. Whereas this is how the new queen laughed. See? Now everyone in the castle and the village hated the new queen. They called her Old Battle Axe and the Meanie Queenie, and a whole load of other names which I can't mention here because the grown-ups might be listening. Only Snow White was too polite to call her names. She just tried to love her new stepmother, even though it was difficult. But that wasn't the biggest problem. Oh dear me, no. It was only the start. You see, the wicked queen was not just wicked. Worst of all, she was jealous. She just had to be the most beautiful woman in the land, and she was quite beautiful in an evil, pointy kind of way. But every morning she would go up to her magic mirror. It was a time when mirrors could be magic. And she would say,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
And the mirror, who always told the truth, would always answer,
The fairest in the land by far is none other than you, my queen.
The mirror could never make things rhyme, which was a shame, but the queen didn't care. All she wanted to hear was that she was the most beautiful woman in the land. But things were changing. The queen never had much to do with Snow White, so she hadn't noticed that in the years since her real mother died, Snow White had grown up from a pretty little girl into a very beautiful young woman. In fact, with her pure white skin and ruby red lips, she was the most beautiful woman in the land. So one day, when the queen went to the mirror and said,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
The mirror, who always told the truth, replied,
You, my queen, are quite pretty, it's true. But Snow White is 10 times lovelier than you.